Scarlett Foster, a dedicated waitress known for her warm smile and tireless work ethic, had been planning this day for months. Despite long hours at the small-town diner where she worked, she saved every spare penny, living frugally and always focused on this special goal. Her saving efforts had combined with a generous birthday gift from a kind regular at the diner, allowing her to finally afford a visit to the luxurious Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club. As she approached the sprawling estate, nestled amid rolling hills, Scarlett's heart fluttered with a mix of excitement and nerves. The club was renowned for its opulence, a place she had only ever dreamed of. She wore her best thrift shop dress, a floral print that she hoped was suitable for the occasion, and clutched a well-used handbag containing the precious confirmation of her booking. Entering the club, Scarlett was enveloped by the aroma of freshly polished leather and the earthy scent of hay. The grounds were exquisite, complete with perfectly manicured riding fields and gleaming stables. Despite her efforts to prepare, Scarlett couldn't entirely suppress the feeling of being out of her depth. Her gaze lingered on the elegant members conversing easily in equestrian terms she scarcely recognized. As the group gathered for the guided riding tour, Scarlett's nerves got the better of her. Trying to break the ice, she innocently asked the poised horse trainer about the fancy horse dance, mistakenly referring to dressage. Marissa, the trainer, seized the moment, her voice slicing through the air as she ridiculed Scarlett's illiteracy. The other members snickered while Scarlett stood riveted in place, flushed and ashamed, feeling painfully visible and humiliated under their judgmental stares. Laughter echoed across the stable yard, and Scarlett's cheeks burned hot with humiliation. The laughter wasn't loud, but it was enough. Enough to sting, to echo in her ears long after the laughter itself had faded. Some members gave amused glances, while others feigned polite smiles, subtly enjoying the spectacle of her embarrassment. A man in a tailored riding jacket whispered to his companion, "Why is she even here?" No one offered her a word of comfort or support. Feeling the pricks of invisible arrows in her back, Scarlett pivoted away from the group, desperately seeking escape. She mumbled a faint excuse, her voice barely rising above the buzz of unkind chatter that followed her. Her vision blurred as she made her way out, past the expensive breeds prancing gracefully in their enclosures, past the polished wood and iron emblem of the club that mocked her humble beginnings. The image of Marissa's condescending smirk lingered in Scarlett's mind, a harsh reminder of places she apparently didn't belong. Outside the club's gates, Scarlett found a solitary bench nestled under the shade of an old oak tree. She sank onto it, holding her head in her hands. The humiliation was raw, the wounds still stinging fiercely beneath the skin. As she sat there, Scarlett's heart felt heavy with more than just embarrassment. Slowly, memories surfaced, memories of late nights standing behind the diner counter, her feet aching after double shifts with few breaks. She remembered the sacrifices, the skipped meals, and missed nights out with friends, all for this one excursion, which she believed would be an escape, a reward, a brief illusion of luxury she had worked so hard to touch. Her mother had loved horses, often sharing stories of her own childhood experiences riding bareback on her grandfather's farm. After her passing, Scarlett had saved every dollar she could, determined to experience the elegance and thrill her mother had described. The Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club had symbolized that dream, a place of grace and serenity where Scarlett imagined she could connect with something her mother cherished, feeling her presence in the rhythm of hooves against the earth. Now, sitting in the shadow of her crushed expectations, Scarlett felt a knot tightening in her chest. She closed her eyes for a moment, recalling the nights she spent flipping through borrowed horse magazines at her local library. She had taught herself the basics, poring over articles about breeds and techniques, eager to join in conversations that now felt so cruelly out of reach. She glanced down at the gift card in her hand, the corners worn from frequent inspection and anticipation. The gift had felt like a blessing, a sign that she deserved this experience, but now it seemed little more than a reminder of a painful mistake. As Scarlett sat, tears finally brimmed over, tracing silent paths down her cheeks. The paths were of silent stories she was too proud to voice, too stubborn to share. She didn't want pity, she wanted to be seen, to be accepted. But instead, she'd faced public derision, a spectacle for strangers who couldn't see beyond her thrift store dress or scuffed shoes. After what felt like a long while, Scarlett steeled herself, taking a deep breath of the cool, fresh air. There was only so long she could dwell before she had to reclaim some dignity. Wiping her eyes with the back of her hand and smoothing her hair back in a practiced motion, she resolved to leave the painful memory behind and perhaps find something, anything, to salvage her day, even if it was just her own peace of mind. With determination driving her, Scarlett finally rose from the bench and walked back toward the side entrance, intending to retrace her steps home. But as she neared the stables, a sharp whinny caught her attention. It wasn't the pleasant, assured sound she associated with her mother's tales. It was distressed, almost frantic. It resonated inside her, pulling on a different thread of concern altogether, one that eclipsed her personal shame. Compelled, Scarlett veered off course and approached the sound. Peering into the slightly ajar stable door, she found a horse, its lead rope tangled and taut, holding the animal's head in an uncomfortable angle. The horse's rolling eyes and restless hooves reflected its growing panic. Without thinking, Scarlett hurried inside, whispering soothing reassurances as she carefully navigated the dusty, straw-strewn floor. The horse stilled slightly as she approached, her presence somehow calming despite the uncontrolled beating of her own heart. Scarlett reached for the rope with steady hands, murmuring softly as she worked to untangle the line. As the horse's head was freed and the tension released, Scarlett noticed another detail. The water trough was grimy, a thin film covering what remained inside. The feed bucket held moldy, unappetizing remains. This wasn't the care she expected for such prized animals. This wasn't right. Scarlett's eyes hardened, not in anger, but in determination. Walking back toward the entrance, she overheard voices, unwittingly eavesdropping as two employees lounged in the sun, snickering over how the club had slashed costs by skimping on care, the complete opposite of the polished illusion presented to its prestigious clientele. Driven by a sense of justice that overtook her lingering embarrassment, Scarlett took mental notes of the chain of neglect she had unwillingly discovered. Safely outside, she located her phone and, fueled by her growing sense of moral injustice, drafted an email. She had read enough to know whom to contact, a passionate animal welfare journalist known for fearless investigations into such neglect. Scarlett included photographs taken discreetly and penned a detailed account of what she had witnessed, her resolve overshadowing her earlier timidity. With the email sent and her conscience clear, Scarlett finally walked away, leaving behind not only the hurt but also the seeds of change she hadn't known she would plant on that fateful day. The sun was setting as Scarlett made her way home, weaving through familiar streets that comforted her with their everyday normalcy. There was reassurance in the predictable clatter of neighborhood kids playing outside, the muted murmur of families settling into their evening routines. Each step carried her further from the shared laughter and judgmental gazes of the Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club, and closer to the warmth of her humble apartment. As she entered her small space, still carrying the emotional weight of the day, Scarlett allowed herself a moment of reflection. The place was modest but meticulously tidy, filled with second-hand furniture that offered her solace. A few framed photographs dotted the walls, her mother's laugh frozen in time, Scarlett with friends at the beach, snapshots of moments when life felt uncomplicated and safe. Scarlett's mind wandered back to the horse she had helped, its untimely plight hanging in her thoughts like a lesson not to be ignored. She felt a sense of gratitude for her actions, driven by instinct and heartache. There had been a certain kind of vindication in knowing she'd potentially safeguarded those creatures. Her mother would have been proud. The evening hours slipped by, the world outside darkening as Scarlett filled her time preparing a simple yet comforting dinner. Her thoughts drifted from the embarrassment she had faced to the email she had sent, a flicker of hope stirring within her. Scarlett busied herself with everyday tasks, resigning any further actions to the hands of fate and justice. She had done what she could, and now she had to let it go, though hope lurked quietly beneath layers of her disappointments. The following days brought no immediate news, yet Scarlett felt a peculiar mix of anticipation and dread each time her phone buzzed. Articles about animals and welfare populated her news feed, but none mentioned the club or the story she had shared. Still, she scanned each with the hopeful intention of reading the words that validated her experience and gave purpose to her actions at the club. When work called her back into its steady rhythm, Scarlett embraced it as a welcome distraction. She navigated her shifts with practiced ease, her demeanor a trusted fixture in the lives of her regular patrons. In the soft din of the diner, amid clinking plates and humming conversations, Scarlett found refuge in routine, the relentless pace helping her compartmentalize the emotions that sometimes still threatened to overwhelm her. Then one unremarkable afternoon, as Scarlett served coffee to a local shop owner she often exchanged pleasantries with, her phone vibrated with persistent insistence. She slid it from her apron pocket, and there, blinking up at her, was the notification she hadn't dared hope for, a message from the journalist, Lindsay Fairchild. Heart racing, Scarlett quickly wiped her hands on her apron and opened the message. Lindsay had written to thank her for the courageous tip-off and attached a link, sharing that her article had just been published. Scarlett's nerves prickled with apprehensive excitement as she clicked to read. The article sprawled across her screen, adorned with images of the club, the narrative skillfully drawing readers into the glamorously deceptive world of Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club. The piece vividly described the unacceptable conditions and Scarlett's initial courageous intervention. Lindsay's words amplified Scarlett's observations, sparking a wave of responses and social media shares that testified to the wider issue of neglect hidden beneath polished veneers of elitism. As she read, Scarlett felt the full weight of her actions manifest in the public's outcry. The article had tapped into an undercurrent of similar stories, a chorus of voices that now echoed her own. People, animal lovers and otherwise, expressed varying degrees of outrage, filling forums with their personal anecdotes and becoming beacons of solidarity. Many were inspired by Scarlett's bravery, conveying messages of support to Lindsay, who credited Scarlett as the catalyst for change. The story spread rapidly, a wildfire fueled by indignation and communal empathy. The online community buzzed with conversation, calling for accountability and demanding better conditions for animals and more inclusive treatment for people visiting such places. Back at her table, Scarlett sat awash in a flood of emotion, pride, relief, and hope mingling in her heart. She felt the empowering resonance of being a part of something larger than herself, realizing in full measure her capacity to effect change. In response to mounting outrage, Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club's social media was inundated with criticisms they struggled to defend against. An official statement was released, bland and defensive, citing the issues as misunderstandings and promising internal review processes. Few were convinced, especially as further revelations and testimonies kept building momentum. Days later, official vehicle parades punctuated with flashing lights arrived at the club's gates. The authorities launched a formal investigation. Inspectors descended, combing through facilities with a meticulousness that turned every ignored corner and stashed away misdeed into glaring culpabilities. The club faced significant challenges, fines for multiple violations related to animal welfare and health and safety protocols, with demands to rectify conditions immediately or face closure. Marissa, whose mockery of Scarlett had unwittingly spotlighted the club, was placed on indefinite suspension. A public apology broadcasted by the club attempted damage control, yet only punctuated the changes forced by the brave actions of someone they had so easily dismissed. Scarlett, enveloped by waves of gratitude from her own community and well beyond, discovered her story had intrigued not just usual patrons but interested neighbors, all keen to lend support, inspired by her compellingly sacrificial act. Other visitors from around the world began to come forward, emboldened by her story to share similar experiences of being treated like outsiders, finding their voices entwined with hers. Scarlett's actions reminded those who often felt invisible that their stories mattered, that their courage could catalyze change. In creating ripples, Scarlett hadn't just advocated for horses, but for equitable humanity that often trembled beneath the threshold of elite presumption. Her stand had ignited a movement, making an elite institution reconsider its traditions and attitudes, a small but significant victory in the ongoing battle for dignity and respect. As word of the investigation spread, the the public outcry grew louder. The article Lindsay Fairchild published gained traction not just locally, but nationally, and even caught the eye of international audiences who cared about animal welfare. The Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club, known for its exclusivity and opulence, was now infamous for neglect and elitism. On social media, the hashtag Justice for Scarlet started trending. People shared the article, along with their own stories of feeling out of place in posh settings or witnessing neglect hidden behind exquisite facades. Scarlett's courage had touched a nerve with many, turning her into an unlikely symbol of defiance against systemic snobbery and negligence. As the authorities arrived at the club, they were met with a barrage of journalists and reporters, all clamoring for updates on the investigation. The media buzzed with anticipation for the outcomes of the inspections. Each day, new updates brought stories of deficiencies within the club, unregistered animals, inadequate quarantine facilities, a lack of veterinary oversight, and deceptive marketing practices were revealed. The Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club scrambled to contain the damage, initially trying to downplay the findings. However, the depth of the investigations unraveled more than just surface-level neglect. The inspectors' reports were damning, culminating in a formal demand. The club was to remedy all listed deficiencies or face permanent closure. In an effort to regain some semblance of control, the club's management issued another public statement, announcing its commitment to a comprehensive overhaul of its facilities and policies. They claimed to be replacing their management team, including suspending Marissa, until further notice. Yet, the public's distrust was palpable, their only interest being tangible evidence of change, not hollow assurances. Scarlett saw the drama unfold from her phone, notifications buzzing ceaselessly with supportive messages, articles forwarded by friends, and comments from strangers applauding her courage. What touched her deeply was the sense of solidarity that had taken root. She saw herself mirrored in countless responses, simple people stepping up to share their truths. Her phone rang constantly with calls from media outlets requesting interviews, her once quiet existence disrupted by the surge of attention. With each request, Scarlett felt a sense of astonishment tinged with apprehension. Reporters wanted to know about her, the woman whose instinct had uncovered a larger truth. She agreed to a select few, her humble story capturing more hearts, hers a powerful narrative of resilience. Back at work in the diner, Scarlett found herself greeted with unexpected warmth and admiration. Her regulars offered congratulations mixed with gratitude and pride. Others, who recognized her from the news, quietly respected her privacy while still showing their support through kind acts, more generous tips, and nods of acknowledgement. These gestures, simple as they were, fortified Scarlett's resolve and eased some of the vulnerability the newfound spotlight had cast upon her. Yet, the most profound validation came from within her community. Neighbors she barely knew stopped her in town to offer their support, their kind words as unfamiliar as they were gratifying. Others shared similar stories about feeling mistreated because of their socioeconomic status, uniting under a banner that seemed impossible just months ago. Scarlett's actions allowed them to voice their experiences, emboldening a conversation about inclusion and dignity that transcended her single story. As the weeks rolled on, the national attention forced the Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club into a new era. Desperate to rebuild its reputation, the club implemented mandatory animal welfare training for all staff, established regular veterinarian evaluations, and created scholarships for riders from diverse economic backgrounds. A new management team with a mandate for transparency took over, promising that the club's future would prioritize ethical treatment and inclusivity. Public relations efforts extended the club's apologies to Scarlett personally, a gesture she received with measured grace. She appreciated the acknowledgement but knew that lasting change would only be measured by actions, not words. Still, the very fact compelled self-reflection within their elite circles was a victory unto itself, birthed from Scarlett's resilience to confront wrongs disguised as norms. Lindsay Fairchild's article shared this narrative of transformation, cementing Scarlett's role as a catalyst and acknowledging the many voices her courage had inspired. The story resonated far beyond the initial incidents, invoking broader discussions on the treatment of ordinary patrons across all echelons of society. Scarlett's inbox filled with thank you notes from individuals who felt empowered to stand against disrespect and negligence themselves. There were messages from those enriched by the writing scholarships, small attempts to foster accessibility amid privilege, each note serving as a reminder of her inadvertent yet potent impact. Meanwhile, Scarlett found her own life subtly enriched by the experience, her sense of purpose renewed and her confidence boosted. Central to this growth was her realization that she had effected real change by conquering her fears and demanding better from those in positions of privilege. Scarlett became something of a local legend, not just for her bravery but for what she represented, a woman who had faced belittlement and turned it into empowerment not solely for herself but for creatures and people alike who lingered on the periphery of high society. Her story became one of those rare cases where ordinary courage managed to overhaul entrenched attitudes, proof that meaningful change sometimes needed little more than a small, persistent voice willing to stand up and say, "We deserve better." In the quelling of dust now settling from the whirlwind, Scarlett, though still somewhat overwhelmed by her unintended stardom, embraced her path. What began as an unassuming day meant to fulfill a personal dream had transformed into a broader journey of justice, community, and empowerment, a story of quiet strength that rippled far beyond her own expectations. Weeks passed, and life gradually returned to its familiar rhythm, though punctuated now with newfound meaning and purpose. Scarlett had resumed her routine at the diner, yet something intangible, something quietly triumphant, clung to her every step. The subtlety of her transformation was visible in the way she held herself, a dignity born not of status, but of conviction. The regular flow of customers through the diner's doors brought a comforting sense of normalcy. Despite her brush with fame, Scarlett remained approachable, always ready with a smile and a listening ear. Her story was still a topic of curiosity, but she found herself steering conversations toward her community's shared strengths and collective resilience, rather than dwelling on her own piece of the action. One afternoon, as she polished silverware amidst the lull between lunch and dinner service, a familiar envelope caught her attention. The handwriting inside bore Lindsay Fairchild's distinctive flourish, thanking Scarlett once again for her courageous action and updating her on the continued positive changes at the Blue Ridge Elite Writing Club. The letter also included an invitation to speak at an upcoming animal welfare conference, offering Scarlett a platform to inspire change beyond her local sphere. Initially intimidated by the prospect, she considered the potential her voice held, not just for animals but for others who felt marginalized by society's hierarchical divides. Scarlett found herself contemplating the difference sharing her story might make to people similarly overlooked. Her contemplation was interrupted when she noticed a distinct card, tucked among the routine mail, a formal apology from the new management of the Blue Ridge Elite Writing Club. It was an extensive letter, detailing reforms and reiterating thankfulness for her influence on their renewed ethical stance. Scarlett read it with a sense of distance and gratitude, acknowledging their efforts but no longer needing their validation. On her way home from work one evening, as golden hour bathed her small town in warmth, Scarlett found herself passing the entrance to the club again. A new sign was proudly displayed, "Committed to animal welfare and inclusive hospitality," it read. Scarlett stopped momentarily, observing the bustling movement within. There was something oddly fulfilling in knowing that her initial embarrassment had given rise to concrete change. Feeling moved and reflective, Scarlett continued her leisurely walk home, heart expanded with the quiet understanding that life's setbacks are often hidden providences. She carried that knowledge like a talisman, its inspiration woven seamlessly into her ongoing narrative. Once back in her cozy apartment, Scarlett indulged in brewing a favorite cup of chamomile tea, a simple comfort imbued with the aroma of home. Sitting by the window, the gentle clatter of city life mingling with the distant hum of nature, Scarlett savored the tranquility. Her thoughts drifted, piecing together the tumultuous path she had navigated in such a short time, each step a testament to courage she hadn't initially known lay within her. With each sip, Scarlett found herself drifting into musings on what courage had taught her. She reflected on all the people who had reached out, how community had rallied and empowered themselves. The power of collective voices, she realized, was immense and breathtaking. In that moment of introspection, Scarlett acknowledged her catalyst role but also understood the collective strength in the voices she helped amplify. Her actions had sparked something much larger than herself, an affirmation that real change often started with simply standing up and speaking out, even, perhaps especially, when you felt small. Later that night, as moonbeams cast soft shadows across her room, a final realization settled into her heart. She had never needed the privilege surrounding places like the Blue Ridge Elite Riding Club. She had all the wealth she needed in her integrity, community, and courage. Each day forward resonated with choice, a choice to persist, to inspire kindness, and to foster fairness. The story of Scarlett Foster, waitress at a small-town diner, had become a quiet, powerful reminder of the impact ordinary people could achieve by carving paths through prejudice and indifference. In the quiet aftermath of what had begun as an unsettling moment meant to shrink her, Scarlett emerged standing taller not because the world had changed, but because she had helped it turn toward greater empathy. In the weeks that followed, Scarlett accepted the invitation to speak. Her aim was simple, yet profound, to encourage others to find their voice and use it, whether it was for animal welfare, human dignity, or their own dreams. The journey from humiliation to empowerment had enlightened her soul, marking a chapter in her life defined not by who shut her out, but by what she courageously let in. Scarlett's story, illustrated by the hearts she touched and systems she influenced, wasn't just about animals or prestigious clubs. It was every person, every animal, every corner of the world that deserved compassion, respect, and courage. In her modest, powerful way, Scarlett had reminded the world that dignity and courage were the true markers of a life well lived. Her one simple narrative intricately interwoven into the lives of those she had never met, yet profoundly influenced. And with that enduring spirit, Scarlett returned to her life, not just as a waitress but as a quiet warrior for the silent voices that deserved to be heard, always sipping her tea amidst the warmth of community she cherished. Her story, a beacon of possibility and hope, proved that courage wasn't about being fearless, it was about facing fears and using them as catalysts for change, an enduring tapestry of grace and empowerment.